All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bring upon you one of the worst articles that I have read in a long time. And I know every couple of weeks we end up coming across certain articles that just blow our minds. And this one coming from Tessa Kaur, Cure, whatever. This particular article is going to blow your mind. So they wrote an article saying accessibility options aren't cheating. And of course, decides to name call people because that's just the way to go, calling us fools, obviously referencing the recent viral video around Elden Ring.
Where the game not having the option for you to be able to pause, for example, is a hindrance for your particular disability, a situational disability. You may need to pause to stop your kid from putting a fork into a socket.
Now, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this one in particular, this is a doozy. This is absolutely a doozy because I don't even think they realize that they contradict themselves heavily. I mean, heavily when they write stuff like this. It's almost as if they forgot what they wrote 2 paragraphs prior and then write something completely different that contradicts everything they've been saying for the last 2 paragraphs. So let's get into this article, guys, from The Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if my audio sounds weird, I am on the road. I apologize. I will be back home very soon with quality audio and everything will be back to normal. So I appreciate you sticking around. We got some highlights here. Accessibility options in games allow more players to play them, and they won't take away from core gameplay mechanics. That is an absolute fucking lie. Most video games will 100% change core gameplay mechanics for accessibility options. So this is a lie right from the jump. I'll give you a perfect example, okay? Think of fighting games, ladies and gentlemen, right? Fighting games that have accessibility options right now. Marvel vs. Capcom has a simple mode and then standard mode where you can have full combos. Simple mode allows you to press less buttons. Is that an accessibility option? Yes. Does that make the game easier? Yes. Does it change core gameplay mechanics? Absolutely. So yes, there are a lot of accessibility options that will 100% change core gameplay mechanics. And we're going to talk about some in this particular article. Inclusion of accessibility options like a pause button can benefit disabled players by allowing them to rest or process information at their own pace. You know, like a lot of the times when these articles get written, they're written from a very condescending standpoint, right? They're written from people that virtue signal 24/7, and they don't realize how condescending they actually are or how they sound when they talk about disabled people or people with disabilities or whatever you want to call them. You make it seem as if they're incapable of being able to play the game as is. I have seen someone who is fully disabled, can't use his arms, can't use his legs, sits in a wheelchair, and my guy plays Elden Ring with his mouth, okay? He is literally playing it with a tongue and mouth controller. You can find him on TikTok. It is insane. But that guy would probably be insulted if you go to him and be like, wouldn't you like some accessibility options, my guy? Like, clearly you can't play the game as is, so we need to make it easier for you. Yeah, no, he played the game fully as is and beat it with a mouth controller because he wanted it bad enough and he worked at it to make it happen. And people like you would take that away from people like that because you think that they are incapable, which is extremely insulting. Sony Santa Monica writer and former journalist Elena Pierce has recently and unjustly, no, not unjustly at all, come under fire for a video she made titled Elden Ring DLC is too hard. It's not. A clip from the video was posted on Twitter where she talks about disabilities and cites the lack of a pause option as a hindrance to people who have children and might need to put the game down to tend to them, as parents should be doing. I'm going to one-up you on this and say, okay, I think that what parents should be doing is perhaps not playing video games when their kid is awake and around and maybe spending time with them, and only when they're going to bed or maybe when they have another parent to watch them, then you can sit down, relax and play some video games. If you're playing video games and letting the TV or the iPad or the phone raise your child, I'm telling you right now, you're doing it wrong, flat out. You are a lazy parent and you should probably be thinking about other things other than accessibility options in video games. People were pointing and laughing and how she seemed to be saying that having children is a disability, despite the fact that she was referring to a specific thing called a situational disability, which, as she later explained in a tweet, is a term used in software and game development to refer to a non-permanent situation that could stop someone from progressing. These people are ignoring the larger point she was making in the video, which is that Elden Ring, especially in the DLC, gives you tools to make gameplay easier, and using them isn't cheating. However, despite this adjustment, it still lacks other simple accessibility tools that will make it easier for certain certain types of people to play it without affecting the current gameplay in any way. No. Okay, so timeout. So what they are allowing you to use doesn't actually affect the gameplay in any way from a mechanic standpoint, right? What you're asking for, the accessibility options, will in fact affect mechanical, like the actual mechanics of the boss fights and whatnot. It will. It 100% will. But adding a buff, right, that gives you extra damage, more health or whatever, better healing, that's a buff. It doesn't change the fact that if you can't dodge, you're dead. If you can't block or parry, you're dead. You still need to know the mechanics of the boss and the gameplay mechanics of the overall game in order to succeed. Giving you a buff ain't gonna do anything unless it's a massive buff that lets you one-shot a boss, which it's not. So none of this actually changes the game. What From Software did with the buff is the right way to go about it, right? Because you have to play the game, you have to go throughout the entire game, go throughout the terrain, find ways to get the item, and then use the item instead of it just being available to you at a start menu because the game is just deemed too hard, and that people who need to make themselves feel better about this game have to have an accessibility mode, because that's really what it is. It's about people who are sad and angry about not being able to beat this game publicly for everyone to see on stream, so they want to use accessibility options to make it happen. Now, here is the most oxymoron statement that you're going to hear, okay? One point she made in the full video felt especially relevant. People with disabilities want to be able to play really hard games as well. They do, by the way. These people aren't asking for an easy mode that will allow them to steamroll the game. You're the one asking for that, by the way. They just want a couple of simple options like a pause button that will make it possible for them to play. The inclusion of those options wouldn't hurt the experience for other players because they can opt to use them or not, just like they can choose to use summons or scatter tree fragments. Even just a pause button could do so much. It could allow disabled people to rest their hands if they're cramping, or for people with issues processing information quickly to stop and think. But that's the point. Like, Elden Ring is supposed to be high stakes, high energy. You're supposed to be on edge, right? Like, if you're fighting a boss, you're not supposed to be able to have the option to pause, think, strategize, and whatever. You got to think on your feet. That's the entire point. You will be taking away from the feel of the game if you add a pause button. There hasn't been a pause button in a Souls game in forever. So why are you going to add that button now? It would make no sense. Now, oh man, we're going to skip this part about, oh, it's just your ego. They say it's ego and whatnot that drives people to talk about this. I want to mention this. So remember, they said they don't want easy mode, right? They don't want easy mode or anything. But then they start talking about how the game should have difficulty settings, storyteller, which makes combat easier for people more interested in the story, adventurer, which balances both combat and story, nightmare, the hardest difficulty mode that can't be toggled out of once selected. They want the ability to have difficulty modes, which inherently changes the game. Like, why? And then, oh, here's the best part. You guys ready for this? They said they don't want an easy mode, but they're shilling for Dragon Age the Veilguard because it was recently revealed, and I got to make a separate video on it. It's been revealed that Dragon Age the Veilguard is going to have a no death mode. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me right. But the Veilguard also has accessibility options that we rarely see in other games, especially AAAs. You can adjust combat timing, enemy damage, your damage, enemy pressure, which are all things we've seen before. But there's also a no death option. Some responses to this news said that the game basically plays itself at that point, or that you might as well just watch a walkthrough, the usual stuff. This game is going to have a no death option. That is literally the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Why are you even playing the game at that point? If you're scared of dying, you shouldn't be playing a video game. Why are you playing? Why? You might as well just watch a movie. They're right. They're absolutely right. And then you're trying to say that games should have these accessibility options. Well, guess what? A no death mode, that is 100% making the game easier. That is 100% allowing you to steamroll through the game, which is exactly what you said that these people supposedly don't want. You're lying. You're lying through your teeth. They absolutely want the games to be made easier so that they themselves can say they beat the game and join the crowd of people who have beat it the right way. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.